Harrison Price for Tuesday, February 18th, 2025. We're coming to you from the Nation Network studio, built by Arbor Lee here at the historic Wall Center. In this show, a presentation of Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Matt Sakaris alongside Blake Price, four-time Judo Award winner Mike Rogers, and hitting switches, conducting things. Got a big show coming for you. I thought it might be a sleepy Tuesday in between the final of the Four Nations and the end of the preliminary round.
We would have ground out a decent show anyway with Pettersson Redux, still a preview of Canada-US, but then we actually got news.
Wow. Lots and lots of news. So let's get after it. And we'll start with our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question asking you, which gamble are you willing to make on Elias Pettersson? Trade him at low value or hope he improves? Vote at the Harrison Price X and YouTube channels. Mr. Price, what says you?
It is a really, really tough call. And hey, we've been chewing on this. We've been masticating this question for some time this season already. But this was a test here, not in the sense of hey, we're putting pressure on Pettersson, but this was a litmus test for Pettersson. You've been given a blank check here. You've been given a new start in this Four Nations Faceoff. And you've been given wingers. So the question is, what are you going to do with it, Elias? Mm-hmm. And the answer was not much, to the point where a coach that he's got a history with, a coach that is his fan, his champion, eventually have to say, I'm done. You're sitting. You won't crack 10 minutes tonight, as was the case last night versus the Americans. So I think patience is worn out here, and I think you have to listen to all offers here. And you're going to be accepting less, but if there's something reasonable here.
So you're trading at low value. You voted trade at low value.
Within reason, yeah.
Okay. I look at it as you have time, so use it. There's not a ton of time between now and the March 7th trade deadline, but you've got 2.5 weeks. He's got a number of games here. I think you listen to what the market will bear at the trade deadline. Understand if you're moving him at the trade deadline, because you are selling at somewhat low value here, if not rock bottom value, who knows? You're probably punting on this season. Now, you may say this season is punted anyways because of Elias's performance and having zero faith that he can get back to being a 100-point player, that he can get back to being a number one centerman, and I don't necessarily disagree. But I would take time, see what the market bears at trade deadline. If any of those offers are acceptable, okay. If none of them are acceptable, I think you give it another opportunity in the offseason at the draft. And let's face it, I think you're looking at a bigger market there. It's just so very difficult to in-season trade an $11.6 million player, even with the cap going up. I mean, there are some teams that have cap space, but that's not an easy salary to fit in-season. Plus, I just think you get more suitors organically in the off-season because teams are chock full of optimism, right? And teams are more willing to look past what are the immediate struggles of Elias Pettersson right now. So I voted hope he improves. But needless to say, with every passing game for Elias Pettersson, the hope of improvement gets thinner and thinner. And rightfully so, and we'll go over a little bit more of his game against the United States and his head-to-head with JT in a moment. But Blake's going to tell you about how much he loves his Outlander PHEV.
Incidentally, we should mention the early results here. YouTube's response is close to 50-50. Twitter still looking and preaching patience at this point. So it's interesting to see the two different audiences split in that regard. Speaking of split, that's the beauty of the Mitsubishi Outlander. You've got the fuel efficiency, and by fuel efficiency, at some point, all you have to do is press the EV button.
That's right.
And there's no fuel at all. That's very efficient on the fuel. But you've got the flexibility in the hybrid vehicle that if you're a road tripper, if you happen to put on a long commute on every day, you've got the backup of the gas engine as well. The performance is there, a zippy vehicle with tons of cargo space and head space, as Matt can attest to. Really, the cockpit is a wonder to be in. What?
Well, and to
I didn't
be
mean
clear,
big head.
it's the headspace because I'm tall.
Right.
Yeah.
Although, shoe fits, you wear it.
Oh,
Go visit.
Thank you for that, Surrey Mitsubishi,
Yes.
13820 104th Avenue. Okay, our top story brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Quinn Hughes enters the chat while Elias versus JT falls flat, and Pettersson falls even flatter. Quinn Hughes has been summoned to Boston as a potential replacement for injured American defenseman Charlie McAvoy, who is admitted to a Boston hospital with a upper body infection. Hughes has not played a game since January 31st. You may remember he missed the Vancouver Canucks final, 4 games prior to the Four Nations break. Now, our understanding of the rules is that the United States must have an injury between now and Thursday.
Bill Daly has confirmed this. It's not just our understanding. That is the rule.
No, but I'm just saying they seemingly are making this. It's the NHL. Yeah. They make things up as they go along. There's gray areas.
They made up the tournament, so yeah.
That the commissioner. Yeah. Anyways, you're all hockey fans. You know how the NHL is imprecise in its own maddening way. But yes, the rules provide that the United States would have to have an injury and illness, a player bowing out for a medical reason between now and Thursday night for Hughes to be allowed, or even allowed to play, or even allowed to practice, or even allowed to group chat, as I understand these rules. And so, does Jake Sanderson come down with the sniffles? Do they have a forward who's nursing something and they'll go 11-7 on Thursday? And if Quinn Hughes does play, I suspect that will get Canada's attention. I suspect it will be viewed in that Canadian dressing room as a bending of the rules, even if Hockey Canada may have done the same thing with Thomas Harley airdropping in. And then there's the question, and I see this kicking around social now. Should Canada just say, hey, throw out the rules, let him play?
We don't want you to have excuses.
No excuses.
And, of course, Canada thought they had sort of developed an upper hand with Makar dropping into this game because he wasn't available for the first meeting. So that would sort of negate any perceived advantage that Canada had from one game to the next.
I got to say, I would be inclined for Hockey Canada to reach across the aisle and say, you know what? Throw out the rules, let him play. But I'm getting a little bit tired of being the adult on the continent.
Yes, in every facet. Exactly. Yeah.
More on that in a moment.
Yeah, you've been preaching, no, we're better than that high road.
Exactly.
Where's it getting us?
Yeah, no, I know.
Play dirty. In this case, it's not even playing dirty. Why are you making me say play dirty? This is just playing by the rules.
Well. Put it this way. I'm more actually thinking of it from the shoes of head coach John Cooper, the lawyer from Prince George. What gets the bit between my guys' teeth more? If we as a federation say, bring them. Best on best. Want to beat the best? Just have them play. We'll throw out the rules. We'll make an exception for you, USA Hockey. Or do their ears perk up more? Is there a little bit of pissed off in their game if, in fact, they force the U.S. to go through the charade of an injury or illness to Sanderson or somebody down lineup?
That might
Put
be a
it
bad
this
play.
way. I put my faith in the lawyer from Prince George.
I like that play because if you're pretty sure they're going to find a way to get him in anyway, let them hang themselves a little bit with the PR side of it, and you can still rise to the occasion knowing that you're playing the very best that they can ice. And everybody else is available. The Canucks look good to go. Matthews looks good to go.
So you're saying make them go through the charade?
Yes.
Okay.
Make them look bad because they are not shying away from all of the politics of this.
When is the last time that country has looked good to an international audience?
Yeah, I mean, they've already said, Bill Guerin has gone on record saying the 51st state rhetoric is an inspiration to them.
All right.
He is inviting President Trump into the fold. Like
some might say begging.
Everything is amped up for this game. Let them lay it all bare.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be so much better beating them with Trump in the crowd, wouldn't it? And if you don't know, Trump attended Super Bowl. I couldn't believe he was the first sitting president to attend a Super Bowl. 59 of those?
Really?
Apparently. I couldn't believe that when I heard it.
I can picture
he also attended the Daytona 500. So he's been at sporting events the last 2 weekends. He's on a bit of a sporting tour. And as we've said in the past, hockey fans in the U.S., that's his base. He likes going to places where his base is. NASCAR, football, hockey, a lot of base there. If not in Boston, certainly in the arena.
What about the injury risk for Quinn Hughes?
Well, look, I'm putting my faith in John Cooper to make the tactical and strategic decisions for Team Canada. I am putting my faith in Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin in having no doubt that Quinn Hughes is healthy enough to play.
I hope there was a conversation there. I would think.
Certainly.
I would think.
Quinn Hughes doesn't do this on his own accord. Come on. Of course, he talks to the Vancouver Canucks, and the Vancouver Canucks talk to Hughes. But, let's remember, Tocchet was talking about him playing in either that Thursday or that Saturday Canucks game prior to the break.
10 days later, should be fine.
One would think. Yeah. One would think. I have less worry. I think Quinn Hughes is too responsible and too serious and solemn a Vancouver Canucks captain to feel like he needs to go and play in this game at less than 100%. I would have trouble believing that. I don't dispute that he wants to play. It's got to be killing him to sit out and watch this from afar, best on best, his first opportunity too, right? But I would have to think that he is responsible enough, a professional, that if he is not 100% right, he is not on this plane to Boston. Much like I think there's little chance that you're going to put him on a plane to Boston for him not to play and for him not to even be able to associate with his teammates on the ice in a practice.
The only thing I'll say to that is playing against the San Jose Sharks in the middle of February is a lot different than playing in this game. He's going to get stapled.
Oh, of course he is.
So, and it's,
the physical intensity of this game will be closer to a Stanley Cup playoff game.
That's right.
Than a Thursday in San Jose.
And so normally you're thinking, hey, this is great. This will, I don't know if it needs to make him better. I don't know if it can make him better. He's just amazing anyhow, but it's just good. It's good learnings for a guy like Quinn Hughes, who's maybe a little ways away from playing in the Stanley Cup final. But this will be a good taste as to what it looks like at the next level.
Yep. Elias ends the tournament with no points in 3 games. Adam Kierszenblad of the Hockey News. Pettersson played just 1 minute 45 seconds in the third. Didn't play a shift in the final 15:07 of the game. Played less than 10 minutes. He's clearly injured, Adam says. Vancouver next plays on Saturday in Vegas. So the injured talk has cropped up more during this tournament. And the truth of the matter is we don't yet know whether that's excuse-making for Pettersson or if there is something there. Like, put it this way, if he's newly hurt, then the Canucks need to shut him down and give him all the time he needs.
And also save his face, Matt. Like, if he is injured, that explains everything to everybody. And everybody goes, oh, okay, well, then that makes a lot of sense. If he's not,
well,
it's a different story.
If this is the knee tendonitis still in mid-February, at what point do the Canucks realize they have been asking him to play when he's not in a position to perform? This could very well be an indictment on the club. And then there's this, door number 3, if you will. If this is Elias leaning on a minor injury that hockey players play through all the time to explain a dreadful season, then he's not the championship centerpiece everybody hoped he would be.
Well, to be fair, though, he's not saying he's injured. Mm-hmm. So, that door number 3 is not an option yet. Until he opens his mouth and says, yeah, I'm battling something right now. I have been for a while. Mm-hmm. He's played that down. He said no.
Well, he said earlier in the tournament, because Noah Strang asked him, he had admitted that not being able to train fully over the course of the summer probably cost him more than he had admitted previously. And, of course, he arrived in camp in shape that was concerning for the Vancouver.
But playing
catch-up, he was not amongst the top testers.
Playing catch-up is not injured, though. Those are two different things. So he's not claiming injury. He's just claiming he's catching up. Mm-hmm. So
I'm just viewing this, Blake, from the prism of what we were told last year, that the Canucks were mortified that he talked about his knee tendonitis as being the reason why he was so ineffective in the second half of last year and the Stanley Cup playoffs. Mm-hmm. Like, if he's a thoroughbred and everything needs to be just so for him to play, that's not a championship centerpiece.
Although the flip side could be true too. We don't know, Matt.
No, I know.
The flip side is,
I said off the top, we don't know.
But the flip side is the Canucks are being jerks, and
yes,
he is pretty injured, and they are belittling his injury for some reason.
And the trust was broken from last year when he outlined the injury, and Taka kept saying, no, he wasn't injured, and then dismissed it as tendonitis. That could very well be at play here. And, of course, that's not the only skew with which the trust between Canucks Sports Entertainment and Elias has manifested this year. There was also the JT Miller matter.
And again, we just don't know. Mm-hmm.
Perhaps a greater indictment of Pettersson's performance than the actual game last night was where his former coach, as you say, slaughtered him. Mika Zibanejad did not participate in this game for Sweden. He had been their top center iceman. And yet, even with him out of the lineup, Team Sweden dropped Leo Carlsson into the lineup at center and moved Elias to the wing. He didn't play center even when they were missing a center. I was stunned by that. I was like, okay, well, Zibanejad's out. He's going to get his opportunity here. No. Started on the wing. And that was with JT, who started as a winger for the United States back in the middle of the ice. They finally had that face-off against each other, but they really didn't come together much at all. If anybody thought that the visage of JT Miller and a head-to-head against his rival, his feud with the Vancouver Canucks would spark something in Elias, that didn't come to bear. Of course, he did outperform JT by the analytics. JT hasn't really been all that good in this tournament either.
Pettersson, by the way, 3 minutes less than the next closest forward at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Boy.
You know, and this coming on the heels, and we talked about it on yesterday's show of Coach Hallam there saying, well, look, he's doing a good job defensively, keeps playing this way, the offense will come. He had gotten leapfrogged by Joel Eriksson-Ek of the Minnesota Wild in terms of the pecking order and the center depth chart for Sweden. But, I mean, yesterday he tumbled off the depth chart.
Outshot 3-0 with him on the ice. His expected goals for was .04.
It takes a lot of games and minutes
I mean,
to add up to a goal.
You could argue his defensive play was okay, but it would be only at okay, and the offensive game nowhere to be found.
No. In fact, his mother and girlfriend got more camera time than he did.
Yeah.
Or at least so people say. What are our friends at Yellow Dog up to this week?
Well, they've got beer specials, and everybody likes to hear that. If you did dry January, this is revenge February, isn't it? Yellow Dog Squirrel Chaser Hazy Pale Ale. 473 mils, 4-packs on special for the month of February. Look for it on sale at private and government liquor stores.
The Squirrel Chaser just looks beautiful in your fridge. It's that crisp green color. So tempting to reach in and open a Squirrel Chaser, especially before a big hockey
And if you like the presence of hops, but not an overwhelming presence of them, it's the beer for you.
Canucks busy. They re-signed forward Drew O'Connor, acquired from the Pittsburgh Penguins late last month. He gets a 2-year, $5 million extension, so $2.5 million per season. He's got 2 goals in 4 games as a Vancouver Canuck. And now both of the pieces from that Pittsburgh trade with Marcus Pettersson have been secured by this Canucks management group. As we all know, they came from Pittsburgh. They have great insight on these players. And I suspect we'll hear from Drew Connor, like we heard from Marcus Pettersson, that he believes in the management group and the coaching staff here, and that's what made him want to sign that extension so quickly. I think this is a fantastic move from the Canucks. He got bottom 6 money and term, even with the salary cap going up. He's 26 years old, so you should be getting the best years that he's got. He's got size. He's got speed. He's a good forechecker. All those things are needed for these Canucks. The last, of course, being so important in the Tocchet system. And, of course, if things go pop for Drew O'Connor, if for whatever reason he can't perform, you're not looking at an onerous contract that's going to cost you a lot to get off, with much of it being able to, with about 40% of it variable in the minors.
I thought you were meaning the other kind of pop. Like, I think he probably looks at this forward group and says, there's forward mobility. There's proof of concept. Kiefer Sherwood has moved up the lineup and proven that they will get opportunities when you produce. But also, he could look at a guy like Kiefer Sherwood and say, what's the chances that Kiefer keeps this up? Maybe I can take his spot and elevate in the lineup, and others as well. There's this is not a forward set that is set in stone here for years to come. And he probably sees this as a pretty fair deal and a chance to make some inroads into his offensive capabilities.
Yep. No, I think that's quite possible. He has not been a big point producer. His high end thus far has been 33 points and 16 goals in 79 games for the Penguins in 23-24.
That's a nice total, though.
That's great.
Yeah.
If you get that for this money
You're totally
in this
fine.
term, you are dancing. And you're right. There is proof of concept. There have been Kiefer Sherwood, Dakota Joshua, guys in and around Drew O'Connor's neck of the woods as NHLers, right? Fourth liners, fringe guys at one point who have flourished here.
You want to outplay your contract? We'll let you do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what the Canucks have said.
Honestly, Blake, when I saw it come in, I went, boy, I think he sold himself a little short.
Yep.
I think on July 1st, he gets more term and more money.
Well, the early indication, he's very happy here. It's a bit of a new lease on life.
And the other thing, let's remember, Blake, he had the one good this is a college free agent. This isn't a highly pedigreed player. This is a guy who bounced between the NHL and the AHL in 3 separate seasons. He has his breakout, and he was sliding back a bit this year. It was 6 goals and 16 points in 53 games. So halfway to his total from the previous year in 26 fewer games. And these sorts of players sometimes feel a little bit of fear of loss, right? Because they have had to work so hard just to make the NHL. And they know their station in the NHL isn't the most secure. So if this is the Vancouver Canucks applying that leverage and saying, hey, look, Drew, we love you, baby. There are other teams that wouldn't value you as much as we do. You've had a nice start here. You know the coaching staff. You know the management group. Then, again, very Am I allowed to say tidy, or is that too cliche with LV?
Well, they're asking him to walk before they run. That's no big money, but it's tripling his salary almost. And I think if he has 35 to 40-point seasons, he'll make a lot more than 2.5 the next time around. That's for damn sure, especially with the cap going up. So he's set up for a payday. If he can get to 16 to 20 goals, he'll make a lot of dough because he'll still be 28 when he signs the next deal. People will pay him. So good luck to O'Connor in that regard. And if he rises to the occasion, he'll do just fine.
I didn't see anything. I saw that it's heavily signing bonused in the first year, but I didn't see anything by way of trade protection, at least not at show start. Did you see anything further?
There has been no reporting on that matter, so okay. I would say that it probably does not. I mean, I wouldn't anticipate.
Well, this is not typically the profile of player that you give trade protection to. Of course, that concept has been thrown for a loop in flat cap when a number. There's 250 plus players now with some degree of trade. Trade protection.
There's only 3 Canuck forwards that've got trade protection, but Dakota Joshua is one of them. So
Well, and
he got a 4-year deal and some trade protection.
Well, and in fact, the trade protection is oftentimes where the contract negotiations start now.
They don't want to move.
Because, thanks to our friends at AFP Analytics and others, you get a reasonable sense, comparative value, so you have an idea what the term is. You have an idea what the average annual value is. So it's the trade protection and the structure of the contract that are oftentimes the bigger negotiation points.
Canucks are down to 2 forwards with trade protection. It's just DeBrusk and Dakota Joshua that have trade protection, unless there's somebody injured.
No,
that's it.
I think you have that correct.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Want to ask you this? Our buddy Cam Robinson tweeting it. As amazing as this Four Nations event has been, you have to wonder how keen teams will be in the future to lend their players mid-season for a non-Olympic event. You've got Theodore, who and yesterday Darren Dreger told us he thought this could be a 6 to 8 week injury for the Pride of Aldergrove. You've got Charlie McAvoy, admitted to hospital with an infection, an upper body injury.
They say he's fine. It's not.
You've had both Tkachuk brothers leave games in this tournament. You've had Austin Matthews play, although not at 100%. We all, as a hockey-loving public, have adored it. But what's the feeling in the offices of the 32 NHL governors? What's the feeling in the offices of the 32 NHL presidents or GMs about making their players available and susceptible to injury?
Yeah, once every 4 years, they could probably wrap their heads around the risk of rolling the dice but now you're doing it every other year.
For sure.
In the new model.
Yeah.
And that's why I said, inherently I didn't love the September World Cup if that was going to replace the Olympic participation.
Yeah. But players don't want it in September, though, and I get that. And, of course, we should also mention you had Hughes and Pietrangelo both pull out of the tournament before it began. Right?
Yeah. I get it if you're a GM. It's a lot.
No, I get it.
Every other year, I've got to get butterflies in my stomach that I'm going to lose my star player before the playoff push.
Especially if you're Vegas, a recent Cup champion, trying to win another, right? They have mortgaged a fair bit of their future to build on the team they have right now.
Yeah.
Toronto Maple Leafs, year after year in the postseason, banging at the door. Austin Matthews is critical to them.
Well, imagine,
and those are teams that are firmly in the playoffs. You also have Ottawa's trying to make the playoffs for the first time. Brady Tkachuk, big part of their team. Matthew Tkachuk, huge part of a defending Stanley Cup champion. Quinn Hughes, reigning Norris winner, trying to get the Canucks back to the playoffs after a slow start.
Imagine if you were a team that had the Leafs of Marner, but imagine if there's going to be a world in which a team contributes a couple of UFA to Bs to these teams. You've sort of built your team as a contender. This is maybe your last year because these guys might walk. It's your 1 year to really push for a Stanley Cup, and you're sending UFAs to B to the World Cup. where they're going to put themselves in the line of fire. Like, what if they get injured there? And everything you built for that one moment, our last push for the cup, that's not a crazy scenario.
Like if Mikko Rantanen got hurt for Finland, like after what Carolina's just given up for.
Right.
My God.
It's a great example.
Yeah. All right. It has been 5,462 days since the Olympic gold medal final here in Vancouver at what we renamed Canada Hockey Place for the 2010 Vancouver Whistler Olympics. Tell me if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Canada lost to the United States in the preliminary round. Canada almost choked away the semifinal in that tournament. You may remember the exploits of then Canuck Pavel Demitra. May he rest peacefully. And the Slovaks in that third period of the semi, down 3-0 to Canada. They score 2 goals late to make it very interesting against Roberto Luongo and the Canadians. Demitra was splendid that night, despite the fact he had not been splendid for the Canucks on many of occasions that season. Of course, Finland, down 4-0, battled back to 4-3 in the semi. And then, of course, the final against the United States. So the parallels are there. Canada is 3-1 against the United States all time in a senior best-on-best tournament. Won the 91 Canada Cup against the States, the 0-2 game in Salt Lake City, and, of course, 2010 here in Vancouver. Lost the 96 World Cup of Hockey final to the U.S. That was a best 2 out of 3. And then there's this, Blake Price, and we have danced around this a little bit, but I've gone a little bit deeper. The game is being played at the obnoxious TD Garden in downtown Boston, Massachusetts, named for a Canadian bank. And it has been a house of horrors for Canadian club teams. The 2011 Stanley Cup final, you do not have to say anything more to a Vancouver Canucks fan. It was a cauldron. The bear was poked. The Canucks went 0-3 in that building. They lost Mason Raymond to injury, a terrible injury. They, of course, lost Aaron Rome to a unjust suspension. So in the city of Vancouver, there are some demons to exercise in that building. In the city of Toronto, their club has lost 3 Game 7s there since 2018, all in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. City of Montreal, they lost a Game 7 there in 2011 in the first round. There's a lot of making up for.
Well, the good news
in
is
Boston's rink. There would be a lot of fan bases in Canadian cities who have been waiting for this moment in Boston.
Per the 2010 parallel, it might be at the Boston rink, but sure sounds like the 2010 rink with Al Murdoch doing the PA announcing.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
So there's that parallel as well. Mm-hmm. He was in the building for the 2010 gold medal game as well. The other thing is there's been 6 games at these Four Nations Faceoff.
I saw this. Very bizarre.
Somebody gets assigned home, even in the Sweden-Finland games.
Yeah.
The team assigned as the home team, 0-6 at the tournament so far. And yes, the Stars and Stripes are the assigned home team.
Yeah, of course.
Here in the final.
Yeah, Canada was the visitor against Finland. Brad Marchand had to walk into the visitor's dressing room at his home rink.
Which we know is a tiny little room.
Yeah.
But we'll see if that trend holds through.
Could I do it one further? Brad Marchand with the game-winning goal Thursday.
That'd be good because you know that he would celebrate just chef's kiss. He would be the right kind of guy to score the game-winning goal. Again, what weird bedfellows we get in international hockey.
But that's what you get in international hockey. That's part of the fun.
Yes.
That's why you love it. You know, celebrating a Connor McDavid goal from Vancouver. Cheering Brad Marchand and Mitch Marner in Montreal. Hell, Blake, we were celebrating Duncan Keith in the province of British Columbia in 2014.
Yeah, that was tough too.
Our friends from the Daily Faceoff Live are there in Boston. They're on location for the Four Nations, bringing you all the exclusive coverage of this tournament. They're going to break it all down, big stories, key matchups, all of it as it unfolds. So check out the insider analysis, the on-the-ground reporting, the Daily Faceoff Live. Subscribe to their channel.
Michael on the chat, Team Canada should go throw some tea in the harbor before the game. So bad.
Okay, back on Canucks news. And there is a practice today, everybody. If you weren't aware, NHL players who are not participating in the Four Nations tournament have been recalled. They had till 2 p.m. or have till 2 p.m. to report back to their NHL cities. The Vancouver Canucks have a practice shortly after 2 p.m. today. As JPAT notes, Arturs Shilovs has been added to the Canucks roster this morning. Of course, Kevin Lankinen in transit back after the loss for Finland to end their tournament against Canada yesterday. Jeff wondering if whether he's simply a practice goalie here, or we'll see. We'll see how they handle it. They don't play till Saturday against Vegas, so if they wanted to give Kevin Lankinen a couple of days off, I don't think anybody would object to that. D. Elias Pettersson, Arshdeep Bains, Nils Oman also showing on the big league roster, according to Jeff.
Yeah, it could just fill out practice for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
We'll see who lasts beyond that.
Mm-hmm. And this is Adam Foote conducting practice, of course, with Rick Tocchet seconded to bench duty as one of the assistants for John Cooper with Team Canada. So,
and it is kind of crazy and inconvenient for guys like Quinn Hughes now, who are on the other side of the continent. I mean, the game's going to end late-ish on well, it's going to end late. It's an 8 p.m. start. I mean, you are in Boston. You're not leaving Boston on Thursday night.
Yeah, you'll be traveling on Friday, and of course, the Vancouver Canucks will be traveling to Vegas.
Yeah. For
their Saturday game against the Golden Knights, and it's a bit of a odd road trip for the Canucks here. They are back-to-back on the weekends, Saturday in Vegas, Sunday in Utah, and it's a 5 p.m. start in Utah, so not even 24 hours between the games.
So Quinn Hughes has got a hell of a schedule ahead of him.
He does.
If he drops into the lineup here. Well, 3 games in 4 nights in all sorts of travel.
No, not in 4 nights, because they have the 2 days off after the Sunday game.
But he's got the American game.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then L.A. and Anaheim on a back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday of next week, and then the trip ends in Seattle.
The pair of back-to-backs.
From Saturday before the Canucks get 3 days off, which is a big block to get off in season, particularly coming out of a season pause.
It's a weird road trip. Wow.
Yeah, it is. And then starts homes. We see this, though, when they pause for international duty, it tends to create some scheduling peccadillos, oddities that you wouldn't otherwise see in the course of a normal 82-game slate, where we're not stopping the league for a couple of weeks. They
play back-to-backs again a week after that. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
They go March 11th, 12th, March 15th, 16th.
Well, that one's home to Montreal, and then the next night road game in Calgary.
And then back home for another back-to-back.
Which is, again, a less than 24 hours turnaround. And yes, then another less than 24 hours turnaround, Chicago, Utah.
So 4 back-to-back sets in the next 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, next month. We're the 16th today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3.5 weeks.
Yeah. We both said crazy at the same time.
Give me a beer.
Okay. Let's get to today's menu. It is brought to you by our friends at Greta, and no big whoop, but we'll be there Thursday for the game. come join us at 50 West Cordova at Greta.
I know it's Thursday, not a Saturday, but I bet you it goes off again.
You want to watch the game with like-minded people.
This is one of those days.
They have the amazing big screen at Greta. They have terrific television coverage everywhere. Get there early. Get yourself a game card. Enjoy a smash burger. They're terrific. Get to your seat. You're going to want your seat. It was like 30, 45 minutes before puck drop and the place was packed on Saturday. So come meet us at Greta, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. We will speak to Jeff Marek here on all these matters and more. We will speak to John Shannon here on all these matters and more. Canada, USA, Quinn Hughes dropping in, Elias Pettersson, his tournament, Drew O'Connor, his extension. This is a hell of a day. I thought for sure it would be kind of, sleepy between the end of the prelims and the final, but here we are. Other thing we should mention, as of right now, we're scheduled to take a couple of days off on this show. We'll be back on Friday after everything goes down. But of course, if significant news breaks, we will be back with an emergency pod. Mike, are you ready if we need an emergency pod over the next 48 hours? Yes, Mike is ready. Fantastic. Okay, Bet365 time. Bets of the day. This segment proudly brought to you by Bet365. How did you do? I won with sweet. And look, that game started with tons of emotion. To be expected. The Americans finally playing in front of the home crowd. The USA chants. They score an early goal, and you think, oh boy, Sweden. Missing players bowing out. Don't go quietly into the night here, Sweden. You're a better hockey playing nation than that. Have some pride. But sure enough, they did. They battled back, so I got to win.
I had looked ahead to Connor McDavid today, or for Thursday, so I'm not up yet. But I am going back to the game, obviously.
Okay, go ahead.
And we have seen Nathan MacKinnon be amongst the most active players on Team Canada. And it reflects as much in the shots on goal over under. I still think he hits it. Nathan MacKinnon over 3.5 pays out at plus 140.
I will never have a more serious Bet365 pick.
No.
Canada wins Thursday. Canada wins because the country needs it for morale. Canada wins because we have the best player in Connor McDavid. Canada wins because we have the best defenseman, Cale Makar, should Hughes not play. Canada wins because we have the best coach, John Cooper, the lawyer from Prince George. Canada wins because we have the reigning league MVP in Nathan MacKinnon. And Canada wins because we have the best captain. And Sidney Crosby won't allow us to lose. 2002 Olympic men's final. Gio Sakic scores. Makes it 5-2 for Canada. Surely that's got to be it. Correct score Thursday. 5-2 Canada. Pays $1,800 plus $1,800. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Jeff Marek coming up next. Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. This next segment brought to you by Ben Moss, a proudly Canadian-owned, operated company, a history dating back more than 100 100 years. They are committed to customer satisfaction. Check out the large selection Canadian Mine Diamonds, lab-grown diamonds. They got Mine Diamonds with payment plans to suit your needs. 5 locations in BC: Abbotsford, Chilliwack, Victoria, Coquitlam Center, Willowbrook, and Langley. For more info, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, for the love of jewelry, as we welcome in Jeff Merrick of The Sheet. Weekdays at noon Pacific time here on the Nation Network, with so much happening. All the news happening here.
Have we seen, is Mike Aruggioni joining USD? Do we have any update on that yet? There's I'm expecting Joey Mullen maybe joins the team. Maybe maybe Papa Kachuk.
Mike Johnson.
Maybe Walt is coming out of the stands. He's gonna come and play. I don't know.
Biz just made the suggestion online. Biz just made the suggestion they should just keep the options open so that you can have people coming in. Imagine
why not
the Canadians dropping in Tom Wilson into this firestorm already. Would that be something, or what?
Why not? Absolutely. Just keep that ball rolling. Just keep throwing logs on the fire until we finally get to Thursday here, and we'll see what the starting lineups are. My goodness, what a morning it's been so far.
Yeah.
With updates, and this guy's in, and this guy's not, and this guy's hurt. Or wait a minute, no, he's not. And all of a sudden, here comes a savior from the Vancouver Canucks to replace Charlie McAvoy. And then Vancouver goes and makes a signing. It's one of those Bob Cole, everything is happening kind of things, boys.
Well, what do you think if Hughes plays? How does he affect the U.S. lineup in this game dynamic?
Well, I mean, it's huge. I mean, he's not a similar player to McAvoy in a sense that he's not going to go out and he's not going to drop Connor McDavid. He's not going to be taking runs at guys. But I mean, all of a sudden your power play's improved. All of a sudden it becomes riskier for Canada to take penalties against the United States if Quinn Hughes is in there. He makes your team better. I mean, that's the obvious statement. This is, again, provided he's healthy enough here to really go for it, then, this is like Team Canada getting Cale Makar back. And we saw what that did for Team Canada and how that improved them instantly. So all of a sudden, this game has taken on another layer of intrigue here, but we still have another day, guys. We still have another day of more transactions and speculations. But if Quinn Hughes is in the U.S. lineup, this one's massive, and you wonder if all of a sudden, all the attention has been about the Tkachuk boys. Is all the attention now going to turn into the Hughes boys, and can they save USA hockey here?
And
we should clarify.
We don't know that he can play.
We're recording this.
Yes.
We are not yet clear whether he is eligible to play or whether it's going to take another injury to an American skater, particularly a defenseman, to get him green lit.
Or someone that just all of a sudden just is falling ill. It's just the damnedest of things.
Things going around. Lots going around. Hey, Jake, how's your back feeling today?
Yeah, Jake Sanderson. Right. Yeah. No, exactly.
No? Is that a sniffle? Ooh, you know what? Your Ottawa Senators are making a playoff push here. I don't want to jeopardize you.
And they're going to cry foul and say, "Hey, Canada did it, so we can do it too." Right?
They got the replacement with Harley. Dreger told us yesterday he had people from the league and the PA asking him to report on Harley's whereabouts during their skate in the Brossard the other night. The other morning. Wow, the roster rules of this thing really need to be buttoned down and I think rethought before the next episode.
Look, hang on. There will be no next episode of the Four Nations.
Well, World Cup.
This is the one for the World Cup. Absolutely. 100% on board, but let's not give any pretense here to the fact that this is a complete one and done, or as the great Michael Farber pointed out, it is a tournament without a history and without a future.
Right. So when we last chatted with you on Friday, you were still saying, I still need to see, I still want to see. Boy, did we see. I mean, and now the lead up as well, the fact that we've got a couple of days to preview and hype up this round 2 Is it officially better than you thought it would be?
The tournament itself, no, but the games, yes. Like I know I'm trying to really sort of like I know I'm trying to
couch
thread
it
a very
here.
fine needle here, but I don't like the nature of this tournament. Having said that, I like it better than the All-Star game or the All-Star weekend. It's kind of like, you know, the Terrence McKenna once said, you know, if you consider that if you think that we are descended from angels, you look at the world and you say, what a mess. But if you consider that we're descended from apes, you look around and say, wow, what an impressive development. What an impressive. So, well, I mean, the bar is pretty low that we're looking at. You're like, we're not coming from angels. We're coming from apes here. And so, it's much better than All-Star Weekend.
I get what you're saying, too, in this regard. Like, the Canadian-American women do the rivalry series, which, you know, gets hyped up. I don't like it. It's not worth anything to me. Like I take note of the scores just to sort of see a litmus test of how both teams are trending. But I'm not living or dying on those games. When it's an Olympics, when it's a World Championship, then I am. And I think you're kind of going down that road, aren't you?
So a couple of things there. One, the rivalry series is spread out, and that's probably why it doesn't have the necessary flypaper. So you'll stick to it and go like, yeah, okay, now I'm invested in it, because they play a couple of games, and then they stop and they pause, and it's back to the PWHL, and there's a couple of more games, and so it's spread out through a certain time period here. But if you just had it as a standalone event, best of 5,
right,
and there was a continual schedule over the course of 2 weeks, you'd probably be more invested in
it. More, but still not all the way.
But the thing is,
you're not winning anything.
Would you not be this way if, again, like we're talking about one and done tournaments here, like we're measuring this off against the Four Nations Faceoff. I just think that I'm still very much of the mind of just give the people what they want. Now, everybody got the final that they wanted here. Okay, like everyone got, like, we're getting USA and Canada. That was the desired outcome. My whole point through all of it is like, just why go through with all due respect to Finland and Sweden, why just go through the charade of like, oh, this is somehow a national tournament? It's not. Just give people what they want. USA can.
Which brings me to my next question. Why not just do a Canada versus USA game as your quote unquote All-Star game every year?
I'm in. Because you
just tell everybody else, look, we operate in 2 countries.
Yeah,
we're hosting this game in one of Canada or the United States each and every year. European countries for years had advantages in terms of centralization and things like that. This is our one time a year where we get our national teams together and we play one exhibition game, and we'll see whether they imbue it with meaning and stakes and take up the cause, the mantle each and every year. But why not just do Canada USA every year?
I'm in.
You guys are
rare genius here from this man.
You guys are of a similar vintage to mine, so you'll remember the Starkist tuna commercials of the late 70s. And there's one that taught me. That's right. There's one that taught me everything I need to know about media, about sports, about marketing. And it's a 30-second spot, and Charlie's sitting there and he's reading Shakespeare, King Lear, Othello, whatever. The big fish comes by and says, Charlie, what are you doing? He says, I'm reading Shakespeare. He says, why are you reading Shakespeare? He says, because then people will think I'm smart. People will think I'm intelligent. And in the line that defines everything that is media and marketing, the big fish says, Charlie, people don't want tuna with great taste. They want tuna that tastes great. We tend to overthink everything. Ray Davies of the Kinks said it best. Give the people what they want. Just give the people what they want. I'm with you. Want to replace the game with Canada versus USA? Give the people what they want. There doesn't need to be a big, huge justification. Well, philosophically, this is why there's blah, 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 blah. No. People want to see this. There's your justification. This is what people want. Do you have, do you have the nerve to give it to them? Now, they ended up getting it here in the Four Nations, but just give them what they want off the bat.
Czech stars and the Russian stars, they're going to be just fine on the beaches of Mexico.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Let the other guys help escrow. You guys just chill. The Canadians and Americans help escrow. You guys,
that's right.
Chill out. Get sand in your toes.
You have enough star power for the sponsors meet and greets, right? With Canada and the United States. It's not like you're missing anything there. Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Elias Pettersson, pointless in this tournament, is benched. Even with Zibanejad missing, he is moved to the wing and benched in the third period where he doesn't play. We're asking our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question today. Which gamble are you willing to make on Petey? Trade him at low value, hope he improves. Jeff Merrick, you're running the Vancouver Canucks. What do you do?
You can't trade him low. You got to cross your fingers and say, you know what, this season's a write-off for a number of different reasons. The drama, the injury, all of it. I think you just write this one off. And I understand that there is the deadline here where you have the freedom to move from where you want. I understand all that. But if you, again, we're talking about a big if here. If you can get Elias Pettersson back to where he was before, and no one knows Elias Pettersson better than Jim Rutherford and Patrick Alvin here. If you believe that there is still that player in there and will play for the Vancouver Canucks like that, then I think you look at this and say it's a write-off. If you think that this has already gone too far and that player is not coming back here for the Vancouver Canucks, you try to create the best possible marketplace you can. But my instinct is always try to make it work. I understand the pressure point and the no move. But if I'm the Vancouver Canucks, I'm still trying to make this one work for Elias Pettersson and this team. I know that might be a very unpopular decision.
For this prolonged a dead spot, like Teemu Selanne had the off year in Colorado, but it was so clearly injury related.
Yes.
They're unwilling to go down that road here. Can you think of a superstar whose bottom has dropped out that ultimately did come back to form? I'm not ready to go there with Huberdeau here. He's had a nicer season, but that's about as close as I can come.
Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
No.
That the bottom completely falls out, and then like I'm just sort of racking my brain here trying to find the obvious example. The problem is who's taking him without retention, right? Like it's not like can we get enough assets?
You can't retain
back
on 7 years. You can't retain on 7.
It's like well that's it, right?
Yeah.
Like but who's
you have
who's
to take offsetting salary?
Who's taking that? But even with that, like what do you have to attach to it? What do you have to attach to it to make it happen?
I think you just got to take salary back, Jeff. You can't use one of 3 retention spots, or although who knows how many retention spots will be in the new CBA. Yeah. You can't use one of 3 retention spots 7 years.
Do you just hope for amnesty buyouts in the next round of CBA? I know the NHL doesn't like money outside the system.
Right. I think
and that's a gamble. It's a gamble. We don't know if it's going to happen.
Look, that comes into play if you keep him through the summer and he has another stinker next year.
Yeah.
And then you know what you're arguing for at the Board of Governors through the Vancouver Canucks. Yes, amnesty buyout, please. Amnesty
buyouts for everybody.
Yeah. All right.
Like it's like I get it. It's so miserable. It's like it's just awful. But I again, like I know I'm saying the same thing over and over here. I hate giving up on young players. I've just seen it blow up in teams' faces far too often.
Drew O'Connor with a 2-year, $5 million extension. He'll be paid $2.5 million over the next couple of seasons after this one. What do you make of this extension from the Canucks?
I like him. Good player, good number, especially considering this is going to look like a minuscule number by the time the salary cap significantly rises in a couple of seasons. I like him. I thought it was a smart bit of business, bringing him in the first place, and you knew he was going to get a raise. Valuable guy, bottom 6. I like it. I like it a lot. Like I would have to be like the biggest nitpicker in the world to really go after this one. I like it. I don't see any issue with it. What about you guys?
No speed that nobody else has.
Exactly.
It's important.
They're a team that needs speed. His speed has been evident in the few games that he's played for the Canucks and has been useful. He's a forechecking guy, and if you're playing Rick Tocchet hockey, and I suspect they will play Rick Tocchet hockey next year as well. I think they're going to play. Yeah. Rick Tocchet will be the The coach.
And outside of Dakota Joshua, they've really done well with the bottom six, not handing out long-term deals. Like, you know, so that if if
they
this
thought
blows
McKayev
up,
was top six, but
they thought McKayev was top. If this blows up, it's not a critical error.
No, it's not.
But I think honestly, I think at the end of the day, he's just a really solid, honest hockey player, right? I mean, and there are a lot of teams that'll head into like the draft every year and say like, look, if the kid can't skate, put him on the do not draft. Like that's the one barrier to entry for a lot of teams at a lot of positions. If you can't skate, put him on the do not draft. If you can't skate, there's no room for you here at the end. I like him.
And he can skate, and he's got some size as well. A couple of the elements the Vancouver Canucks are missing. Back on the Four Nations.
Sure.
What's your assessment of how Coach Cooper and the staff have handled the goaltending in Jordan Binnington?
So first there was the Adrian Kempe goal. Then there was the Jake Gensel goal. Then there was the Esa Lindell goal. I know that Jordan Binnington makes it easier to be a defenseman because of how he handles the puck so well. I just don't know that you wouldn't have at some point given Aiden Hill a shot. I thought they might do it against USA. Considering every single game there's one bad goal. I might be in the minority on this one, but I'm giving him a pass on the Dylan Larkin goal. Like that's just a perfect shot. To me, I look at that one, I say, I mean, 9 out of 10 goaltenders at the end. Maybe Connor Hellebuck stops that shot, but like from where it is, how it gets off his stick, where it ends up, like that's as close to a perfect shot as you're going to see in the NHL. So I do give him a pass on that. Others would say, this is an international tournament. This is a big stage. You have to make that save. So I think that John Cooper and everybody on that bench understand that the pattern here has been one bad goal every game, because that's what we've seen. And maybe one of the two Granlund goals you had a shot at stopping. But I think if he was a clear front runner,
I would totally understand him sticking with this. Why would he not have given himself the education of an Aiden Hill start?
That's normally the way these things work, right? You have a round robin. Each goaltender is going to get one start, and then whoever does better, that's the goaltender that's going to get the third start. I just wonder how much of this was about. This is about helping our blue line because he's a good puck handling goaltender. But at times he's looked so jittery. He's looked so jittery in there. Like maybe just like we've been spoiled, and maybe we're still thinking about, cool, calm, collected Carey Price in Sochi, where don't worry, I got this. Not, every time a team steps over the blue line, you start to tense up a little bit. But that's what happens. Like when the puck is around the net with Jordan Binnington. Now, in his defense, he has made some 10 bells. Like there have been some saves like, oh, wow, man, needed that one, got it, awesome. But it seems as if baked into the pie, you go into the game saying, in our minds, we need to score a minimum of 2. There's not going to be any U.S.-Canada 1-0 game on Thursday.
No. But that is not a big ask. With this group of offensive players, scoring 2 goals is not a big ask.
I know. But I get that. But the U.S. defense has been incredible. Like that was a clinic on Saturday.
But
like everybody should understand how good Slavin and Faber are.
No question, they did a hell of a job of keeping Canada neutered for the most part after that Connor McDavid goal. Do not tell me that the likes of Connor McDavid,
and
Nathan McKinnon, and Sidney Crosby, and Sam Ryan, and all this offensive talent can't figure that out. Surely, with the firepower you have offensively, you can adapt here. And fellas, you guys hit it in the midst of your conversation. And I'm going to get accused of being the best lawyer that the lawyer from Prince George has ever had, because I've been defending John Cooper on all of these matters, Binnington related. Herein lies the difference, gents. Mm-hmm. We don't have a Carey Price. We don't have a Marty Brodeur. We don't have a Roberto Luongo.
No.
And so handling things the way we have normally handled things, where you're picking from, Vezina Trophy winner or Vezina Trophy finalist, is not at the disposal of John Cooper and his staff. And so what they have chosen to do is throw their eggs in one basket and say, we believe in you, and try and raise his level up by the belief they're showing in him. And Jeff's 1,000,000% right about his ability to handle the puck. This is what ultimately led to the move to Marty Brodeur over Curtis Joseph at the 2002 Olympics, if we all remember that. With a defense, the likes of which Canada can throw out, being able to play defense more easily or transport the puck more easily because you have a goaltender who is so adept at playing it should be a huge advantage. He's on a short leash Thursday. We can all agree on that, right? Like if he lets in a statement or two.
Okay, I'm curious. Okay, so what does short leash mean? Okay, so and here's how I want to couch it. If you think there's going to be the tournament is dictated. If you think there's going to be one clunker, one goal, like and all the shoulders come down on the bench, and that ends up being the 1-0 goal. Does he have a chance?
If you lose the game 1-0, it is not Jordan Binnington's fault.
I understand that, but
if you lose the game 1-0, there are 18 guys who shoulder a bigger load.
If that's the 1-0 goal, like, is that the short leash?
You've got, for my money, you've got to live with one clunker. 2, I think you've got to make the move. Also, if you get to a situation where you're down 2 or 3 and it's just you think Aiden Hill can give the bench a spark, then you do it that way. But you ain't got time to bleed. That much is sure. But Blake's mentioned the Grant Fuhr example last week. It's effectively what you're looking for here. You don't need the scintillating peripherals. You need the big save in the third, and you've got to score goals. And you should be able to score goals.
I take Grant.
Wouldn't we all?
Current Grant, I mean.
and you know what? I'll give you the example. That Larkin goal. Like, if Binnington makes that save, you know whose game goes through the roof? Sidney Crosby, because it was his high ice turnover on a very un-Sidney Crosby-like play. That led to that one. All of a sudden, it's like, all right, Jordan, thanks, man. I got you. All right, that's not happening again. Let's go, boys. Because that is not a Sidney Crosby pass.
Before you go, one last chance to pile on Sweden, who had the most Sweden-esque tournament of all time. They were undefeated in regulation time. Playing 5-on-5 hockey as we know it, they were undefeated in the tournament. They beat the Americans. And you could say, the Americans were missing A, B, and C.
And had nothing to play for.
Right, but
that's important.
But Sweden could have had that.
That was sorry, go ahead, Blake. I'm cutting you off.
Well, if Sweden beats Finland in overtime,
yeah, I know.
America still has nothing to play for. Maybe it still goes down, and Sweden takes points there and makes the final. Maybe it's a Sweden-American final. It's right there for Sweden.
You're so right about this is such a Sweden tournament, and you see this at every single level. I mean, I can't
undefeated in the World Juniors, can't make a final.
Can't make the final, can't win the gold. And then they get the silver, and Elias Pettersson is throwing it into the stands. And it's like, look, I can't tell you how many times I've predicted Sweden for great things internationally.
Yes.
I love the players, love the teams, like all of it, but it just doesn't, for whatever reason. It's Charlie Brown on the football for Sweden. And listen, last night, still like pouring it on the again, a great game by always look at individual players and great games that they turn in. That was a hell of a game for Sammy Ersson in a really difficult year for Sammy Ersson with the Philadelphia Flyers. I thought that Joel Eriksson Ek had a really good tournament. I thought that Adrian Kempe had a really good tournament for Sweden. Again, another good tournament from Victor Hedman. You wonder about the age here a little bit from certain players on the back end, but some really good individual efforts from Sweden. But Blake, I think you put it right. It was the most Sweden of tournaments for Sweden. It really, really was. And the takeaway for a lot of people is going to be what we already talked about. What's going on with Elias Pettersson? It did nothing to calm down any conversations.
No.
As a matter of fact, if anything, it's focused the attention more on him. The opposite of what everybody was hoping for heading into this thing. Feel bad for the guys. Bad enough this year.
Yeah. And still 30 games to go. We'll see what happens.
Jeff?
Yes.
Jeff? Look at me.
Yes. All right. You and me. Eyes to eyes. Here we go. Locking horns. Here we go.
We're not going to lose. We have the best player. We have the best coach. We have the best defenseman. If Hughes doesn't play, we're not going to lose. We don't lose these games anymore.
Are you trying to convince me or convince yourself?
What do you say? What's your prediction? Or are you saving it
I
for
think
the sheet?
I think Canada wins this thing. I think it's really hard. I think if Canada would have won on Saturday, I would have said the same thing about the United States that I'm about to say about Canada. When you have elite teams like this, it's really hard to beat them twice, because Canada's going to make the adjustments here as well. So I'll take Canada in the final, and it'll I don't think it's going to be like a blowout or anything, a 5-1, like game's over halfway through the second. I think it's going to be a close one, but I think this is a Canadian victory come Thursday. Tough to beat teams 2 in a row. It's tough. It's really hard.
And here's the other thing. They might argue they have the best goaltender in the world. He has not been great in pressure games in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
It's his chance, if you want to focus more positively, if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, it's his chance to rewrite the career. It's time to change course here for Connor Hellebuyck. But yeah, we talk so much about, history and patterns and developments and trails. That is, I cannot dispute that. No one can. It's 100%
He
true.
is 2-12 in his last 14 Stanley Cup playoff games.
I will say this about the U.S. defense. They keep the puck away from him. And as we saw
They do.
Saturday, it's one shot and then either high off the glass, breakout pass, or skated out of the zone. That U.S. defense was so efficient on set. Like the game, the way I've been phrasing it is the game started out as Hagler Hearns, but finished up like Pacquiao Mayweather. Like it just turned into like this sort of defensive struggle after we saw the best 3 rounds of boxing we ever saw.
Yeah, I know exactly. It's a great comparison. Exactly. Why are we dancing around the periphery of the ring? Marvelous stuff, sir. Thank you for this. Enjoy the game Thursday. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, boys. Talk next week.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sick Harrison Price from the Historic Wall Center.
I know many of you make your commutes from the valley and you stare enviously at those whipping down the HOV lanes in their commute thinking, wish I could be those people. You can be those people. All you have to do is get behind the wheel of a BZ4X from your Toyota Pacific dealers, and you're there. And you're in a cockpit that makes you feel like you're in a spaceship. Go take one for a test drive. You don't have to take my word for it. Check it out. And you're going to find out that your Pacific Toyota dealers have got the best deals going right now. $6,500 in rebates and incentives in the BZ4X. You can finance one from 3.29% APR for 36 months. All you have to do is visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealers. And as we've been telling you about, what a deal they've got for you here. A contest right now for the grand prize, 2 tickets to the Kunika Minolta Champions Club at Rogers Arena for the April 6th game between the Canucks and Golden Knights, and you get 2 Canucks jerseys. So you'll look great. You'll be behind the wheel of your brand new car. If you want to win, check out the link in our episode description or follow Toyota Pacific on Instagram and Facebook. That's at Toyota Pacific for your chance to enter. Contest is open only to residents of BC and the Yukon, age of majority. Good luck.
John Shannon is the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada. His podcast, 100% Hockey with Darren Millard, 3 times weekly, the most famous man from Oliver, British Columbia. And I suspect they will be gathered Thursday night at the Howling Coyote Pub, the Flealess Hound Pub, and every other establishment in Oliver to watch Canada and the United States. Good day, sir. How are you?
I'm well. Now, because I'm from Oliver, do I qualify for the contest at the Toyota dealership?
Do you have a mailing address in Oliver still?
P.O. box?
You need to be a resident.
Do you have a friend? Is there a Shannon relative that we can put down?
There's lots of relatives. Don't worry, there's lots of relatives. Or just send it right to the golf course. Just send it.
Send it to the
By the way, that Vancouver Vegas game, that could be a playoff preview. The way both teams are playing. That might be, that might be 2-3 in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm. We have our eyes on that one, and frankly, the rest of this Canucks road trip out of the break, 2 back-to-backs there, Vegas, Utah, and then L.A. and Anaheim. But before we get there, my friend, this week has crystallized how much I've missed Best on Best international hockey. John, it just does something inside of me, butterflies that Stanley Cup playoff hockey, and in fact, nothing else on the sporting calendar does, because it's Canada and because it's identity. And needless to say, Canadian identity a little more acute these days than normal. Your thoughts on the tournament to date?
Well, I did not think I thought it was going to be good. I did not think it would grip the country the way it has, because it's gripped the country, and there's even a little bit of a hint that it's broadened the base a bit in the United States, which is so important. I think so important for the future of hockey on the continent. But the players, it all goes back to the players. The players are invested. The players believe in this, and when they're throwing their bodies around, when they're using passionate statements like "this is the most important game of my career," it does tell you what the future of international hockey is and what it should be. And so, we're going to see international hockey again next year in Italy at the Olympics, and then hopefully we will see a World Cup of some form every second year after that.
Does Canada have a case to cry foul if Quinn Hughes pops into this game for Jake Sanderson or somebody else on Thursday? Or is this simply the United States leveraging the same rule Canada did to get Thomas Harley?
And we'll give you the backdrop here, John, that Darren Dreger was being contacted by people higher ups
from both the league and the PA.
As to the whereabouts of Harley.
During a morning skate in Brassard.
They were like, he better not be getting on the ice. So if they're going to be that watchy of Thomas Harley, shouldn't we be the same of Quinn Hughes and whomever gets the sniffles?
You don't think that Team Canada and the NHL will be monitoring all of this the same way? I guarantee.
I hope.
I guarantee there'll be somebody from the league walking around with a thermometer, making sure that there are no flus, there are no situations. Now, the problem is the flu bug has been an issue, not just in this tournament, but the bug has been an issue in the NHL for the last 3 weeks. So it is a factor. But here's my answer to that. If there's a way that Quinn Hughes plays for the United States, bring it on. Bring it on. If we're going to claim to be the best as Canadians, we better beat the best. So I have no issue who the Americans put on their roster, as long as it's done by the same rules that Canada was, forced to work with. By the way, as an aside, at Hall of Fame week here in Toronto, we sat. I know you find this hard to believe, but we were in a bar before the event, and ended up talking to a couple of guys that were actually high up in USA Hockey on the management side of this team, and they were pleading with the league to give them a 25-man roster. That the 25-man, and they went to the point where, and I believe Canada sent a note too, suggesting that the roster should be expanded by 2 for this very reason. And going for the 25-man roster would have allayed a lot of these fears for all 4 countries. And the league heard the appeal and said, no, we're going to stick with 23 because that was our original agreement with the Players Association. So
Well, the concern too was that
I don't know why they just don't allow 20 skaters.
Well, the concern was that they were going to have superstar players sitting around, and that was, for a non-Olympics, for a non-World Cup thing. They thought this is an exhibition series, and we've got superstar players sitting on the sidelines and practicing it, so they didn't like the optics of that. But
so then dress 20 skaters, allow that. That is a case in international events. And if you get below 18, then you can airdrop somebody in. And if you fall short of 20 skaters, then you play with 19 or you play with 18.
This could have been avoided. And Blake's logic is there, but we've learned this lesson. Hopefully we understand that we're now in a situation in the future, the next World Cup, because it won't be an issue at the Olympics, the next World Cup will be a 25-man roster. It just makes too much sense.
And that makes sense, though, from the players' perspective as well, that they won't mind being on that long list if it's for a World Cup rather than a quote-unquote Four Nations Faceoff. But you do have to have a little bit of concern from a Canucks perspective as well here with regards to Quinn Hughes. He hasn't played for 3 weeks here. He's been injured. And we applauded him for making the right decision for club by not showing up in the first place for Team USA. Boy, the Vancouver Canucks must be very convinced, or they are crossing their fingers, that he's 100% healthy. As we saw, it's big boy hockey out there. And a non-100% Quinn Hughes going into that big boy hockey, that's not good news for the Vancouver Canucks.
I think the other thing you have to look at, really, Blake, in all of this is the Canucks made the decision to leave it up to Quinn Hughes. Mm-hmm. And so this was the second time that it was up to Quinn Hughes. And Quinn Hughes made the decision, I'm going to get on the plane and go to Boston as an insurance policy.
I think he saw the game and said, I want it in.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem.
A few things.
700 guys saw the games and wanted in. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a few things here. Quinn Hughes was very close to playing in that San Jose or Toronto game that ended the Canucks schedule before the Four Nations. It's been a couple of weeks since then. So it is well within the realm of reason that he has just fully recovered and wants to play in this game. I will give them that benefit of the doubt, given the way the Canucks and Hughes approached it. Secondly, John is absolutely right in that if he drops into this game, I see two benefits for Canada. Number one, there will be a perception that the United States has played monkey games here with the rules. And in a competitive arena, I'm sure they won't look at the Harley matter similarly, right? They'll just think the U.S. is playing games here, and I think that has a way of focusing them. But also what John said, to be the best, you got to beat the best. Bring it on. I like that would grab the Canadian team's attention as well.
I think that's the only way you can look at it. I mean, Canada's done a good job. It's funny, the roller coaster of the last 4 days, when you consider on Saturday night at just after 11 Eastern time, people were, drinking another beer, worried what's the future of hockey in Canada. And then you realize, hold on, you still got a chance to go back at this. And now all of a sudden, with the injuries that have occurred to McAvoy, with both Kachucks now on the mend at some point, Austin Matthews. By the way, we talk about Quinn Hughes not playing 100% for the Canucks. Austin Matthews hasn't played 100% for a month for the Maple Leafs. So so from that perspective, Canada's in a pretty good spot when it comes to Thursday night's game. And in the end, it probably will come down to goaltending. And it'll come down
to where I wanted to go next. Yeah.
It'll come down to a Canadian playing for a U.S. NHL team and for an American playing for a Canadian NHL team. And it's going to be kind of cool.
For us old guys, 2000 doesn't seem like that was that long ago. 25 years is a fair amount of time. But as recently as 2000, 60% of goalies, I believe, in the NHL were Canadian. It's down to 25% or not even 25%. We won't have a royal commission on goaltending when all this is done, but should Hockey Canada bear some of the burden here in trying to develop Canadian goaltenders a little bit more here? Because it's not like there's an heir apparent waiting in the wings here. Like, even if you look at the three guys that people have been trotted out as the snubs, Thompson at the top of that list, I mean, none of these guys are pedigreed, full-throated number ones with a bullet here. We don't have anybody in the on-deck circle waiting to take over this mantle, not obviously anyway.
Well, there's a couple of things that you wonder about why it's happened. And we've seen the cycles of goaltenders. We went from the Canadians being dominant to the Swedes being dominant to the Finns being dominant. Now the Russians are dominant.
And Americans.
The Americans are dominant as well. So, but here's our problem. Who have been our greatest players in the last 25 years in our country? All skaters. So the moment you watch the 2002 Olympics, you want to be Joe Sakic. You want to be Chris Pronger. 2010, you want to be Sidney. After the 2015 draft, you want to be Connor. So the greatness of Patrick Waugh and Martin Brodeur have worn off to want to be goaltenders. Everybody in our country wants to be a skater now because that's where all the fun is at this point, or at least that's the perception.
Luongo and Price were no slouches, though. I mean, like those guys were superstars in their own right.
Yeah, and that's so. With that in mind, maybe the drought isn't as bad as you make it out to be, Blake, because Carey Price. Had he been healthy, Carey Price would have been the goaltender for this team still.
It's not so much a drought. It's I'm projecting forward here, John. That I just don't. Like, who's the guy going forward?
I actually asked a couple of guys at Hockey Canada after the World Juniors that question, and they were a little more confident in the future of goaltending in the position going forward. I didn't follow the World Juniors as closely as many people did. But from that perspective, they seemed much more confident in the goaltending, and they called it the cycle, that we're in the cycle of skaters being dominant right now, goaltenders, and goaltending will make its comeback.
Elias Pettersson, what did you make of his tournament? And we're asking on our poll question today, what should they do here? Trade him at low value or hold him and hope he improves?
Well, I'm on the latter because we do know the potential. We do know exactly what he is when he's at the elite level. I think you have to hope that let's face it, he didn't play very well. He wasn't very noticeable for the Swedish team. So. Are you concerned? Yeah, you have to be a little concerned. But at the same time, perhaps this is the thing he needed to know to see that he can, be at that level again. And now I think the Canucks are in a decision-making process between now and the end of their season of what they need and want to do with him. But he needs this runway right now, Matt. He needs the runway to be able to prove that he belongs. He needs the runway to prove that he's worth that kind of money. And let's face it, the Canucks have an out at this point until July 1st if he doesn't really show that he can shorten that runway and play better on this team. There are times, it's funny, just before the break, there were a couple of glimmers. There was a couple of glimmers with him, and including that great pass across the ice to Roenick for the goal. And you said, you know what, there it is. There it is. There's the spark. And I think every Canuck person is praying that there's a spark. And you're waiting every game to see the spark. And I think you now have to wait till the end of the season to decide whether that spark still exists.
They've got 30 more games to look at him.
Sure.
But does the value sink lower, though? Like, is it if he goes on another really bad stretch of production, have you sunk yourself even further behind the eight ball?
The one thing I've learned in this league, Blake, is there's always a manager or a coach that thinks he can rehabilitate anybody.
100%, but they're still not going to pay market value for that guy. They could be very hungry and say, I know how to do it with this guy. And they'll believe that, but they're still going to want pennies on the dollar, no?
Well, what do you think they did with the Miller situation before? How did they do?
They did okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, I like okay. I like okay when we haven't even seen all the parts of the trade. Marcus Pettersson is going to be an improvement. Signing Drew O'Connor helps. I think Hedels, is a good player. So I think I don't want to get into speculation of what they're going to get for him, but I actually have a little faith in this team, this group of guys that are running this team, to say that they can go and make a trade, find a way to get something, if that in fact is what needs to happen after the season's over.
Mm-hmm. And they made a trade with Pittsburgh that netted two players who have both been extended now, John, as Drew O'Connor joins Marcus Pettersson in signing a deal with the Vancouver Canucks. I know you were mentioning him when the trade was first made. I know he came on and told us, don't underestimate this guy. This guy can bring something. And they locked him up.
The defenseman Mancini, too, I think is a really good hockey player. And I think there's still people in the Ranger organization saying, gosh, we gave up a lot. We gave up a lot because of the future. And they have a lot of young defensemen in New York, so they felt they could afford to give one up. And I think there's still people in the organization shaking their head a little bit that that's the one they gave up.
Lastly, John, we're not going to lose Thursday. The country needs this. We got the best player in McDavid. We got the best defenseman, Makar, if Hughes doesn't play. We have the league MVP in McKinnon. We've got the best coach, the lawyer from Prince George. And most importantly, Sydney will not allow us to lose Thursday.
I never thought I would get emotional about the Four Nations Faceoff, but you can't help but be emotionally charged with this tournament, particularly, and this is a very Canadian thing, Matt, because people south of the 49th parallel don't have the same feel that we do, but particularly with the political atmosphere the way it exists right now.
Exactly right.
This is important to us.
Hockey has always been cultural identity for us, John. And so when you're playing for a greater purpose, and we are playing for a greater purpose, I believe in that.
72 was like that in many ways. I think 1980 was. I think 1980. No, I don't think 10 was like that. 10 was us becoming a little
nation of winners.
Yeah.
Nation of winners. It was the last gold medal to be rewarded. We weren't going to sit there and look at this record gold haul and not put men's hockey on top of it.
But on top of that, Matt, I think and I give my pal Pelly a lot of credit for this, was he was one, even on the broadcast side, said, we can be proud to be Canadian and we can brag every once in a while. And a lot of that came through, I think, in 2010. But, in many ways, this could be, it's not the college kids versus the aged Russian superstars, but this is our version, I think, in many ways, of Lake Placid, because of the political nature of what is going on and the pride of what's going on. Quite frankly, I don't think, well, I know for a fact, I don't think as many Americans understand what we're going through as we want. And this will just help us get through another day or two if we're able to pull out the victory on Thursday night.
And Team USA is campaigning to get Trump there, and that would just elevate it even more if he was in the building.
For sure. You know what? Bring him on even more. And to answer your question, the future of Canadian goaltending is 6'5" Joshua Ravensbergen of North Vancouver, British Columbia, and the Prince George Cougars. Can tell the rest of the country, John. BC's got us covered.
Okay.
First round pick this year. He'll be our guy.
North Van's got us covered. If it's him, Celebrini, and Bedard.
Well, we always knew BC would save the day, boys. We always knew. You know, I remind everybody here every once in a while that it's a pretty good place to come from and a pretty good place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I just tell people now I'm still living in exile, so it's okay.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks, John.
The sun sets on British Columbia every night, and it will be a golden sunset on Thursday.
If you are struggling with things like managing stress, anxiety, relationships, or divorce, reach out to the counselors at Advanced Counseling. Book your free initial consultation today at advancedcounseling.ca.
Sekeres & Price from the historic Wall Center, where you extend your game night with a staycation here in downtown Vancouver. Book a Sekeres & Price exclusive rate here at the Wall. Call 604-331-1000. Ask for us by name. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. You can text this show, 778-402-9680. Email live at sekeresandprice.com. All to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
I sometimes feel like the Whitecaps are a cursed franchise.
Oh, there's room for
Perhaps
more than one in this
more
market?
so than the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
Their star signing of the offseason, winger Emmanuel Sabi, has suffered an ankle injury. He's out 2 to 3 weeks, according to sporting director Axel Schuster, meaning he is going to miss the CONCACAF Champions League Thursday match against the Mexican side, Deportivo Saprissa, and the MLS regular season opener Sunday at Portland, and will probably 2 to 3 weeks takes them through next week's second leg of the CONCACAF Champions League and home opener at BC Place.
Costa Rican team, not Mexican team.
Oh,
but,
sorry. Put myself on E's and O's.
Yeah, you put this into the category of, Stuart Armstrong playing a handful of games total in his career as a Whitecap. Like just when you're thinking things are going right, they're not going right. They will have Daniel Rios theoretically available to them, but he's not necessarily match fitness, so we'll see about that. Not ideal, and still no rumors of any DP in the offing for the Whitecaps right now as well. So we'll see. The other thing to note is
apparently they were really close on this Horvat Slovenian midfielder, and then at the last minute he got cold feet. So
changed his mind. The MLS pundit predictions were not very kind to the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Never are, though.
14th, 10th, 15th, 12th, 13th, 13th, 11th, and Bradley Wright Phillips, the most optimistic of the bunch, at 8th in the Western Conference. Those are all Western Conference.
Yeah,
overall.
but this is the case almost every year preseason.
Yeah.
And frankly, they do better than a lot of these Western
yearly.
sides.
Even the Canadian, Kaylin Kyle, she's a former Whitecap, 13th.
Oh, Kaylin. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Toronto Blue Jays failed to come to terms on a contract extension prior to his Monday night soft deadline. Vladdy met the media this morning in Dunedin at the Jays spring training complex through a translator, said they were not close, said he knows his value, said his value didn't have anything to do with Soto, which was an interesting comment. He said he wouldn't shut the door if the Blue Jays make a fair offer, but doesn't want to distract his teammates with talk of contract negotiations in season. Jays GM Ross Atkins met the media, and in true Ross Atkins form was asked, "Are you close? Were you close?" And he said, "It depends on your definition of close." He's not doing himself any favors there, huh?
I cannot believe these guys are
I
still
cannot
in
believe
charge
these
of
guys
the
are
Jays.
still running the team.
I cannot believe it.
Bottom line here, the reporting on this, Jeff Passan of ESPN and others saying the Blue Jays aren't going to immediately trade Vlad Guerrero, but will be monitoring this situation. Needless to say, if they are not in a contending position at the trade deadline, then you absolutely have to move Vlad Guerrero. Even with just the 1 year left on his contract, the MLB insiders believe that he would return quite a haul. And quite frankly, in conjunction with Bo Bichette, who, of course, had a terrible season last year, but has twice led the American League in hits, he's a pending free agent too. We could be looking at a full tear-down rebuild here with the Toronto Blue Jays. And frankly, given the plight of their farm system, and it's got a little bit better at last year's trade deadline. They executed a couple of trades that people thought were pretty wise. The Yimi Garcia trade to Seattle returned an outfielder who looks like he could be a player. The Houston trade acquired 3 young pieces of Kikuchi. So it's a little better than what it was, but they may need to come to Jesus on all this and realize this team is not going to contend, and it's time to move 2 guys who were going to be the 2 next bright young stars, right? Like they were going to be the Fernandez and Bell or Fernandez.
Are we seeing a bigger trend, though, of baseball free agents going to full-throated free agency to let everybody feast on them?
Well, with a $500 million available, yeah.
It doesn't make a ton of sense for you to just talk to your native team. And a lot of times they stay. Like Alonso stay. Like guys stay.
When you look what the Dodgers are paying, what Mr. Cohen and the Mets are paying, what the Yankees are able to pay, you're quite right. Now, Vladdy has said in the past he dislikes New York. Apparently his father was not treated well there, and so he put a stake in the ground, developed a feud with the Yankees and their fans. He gets booed lustily there, so I wouldn't think it's the Yankees, but there's insider information today that he has apparently always eyed the Boston Red Sox and thought that might be a good environment for him. And because
their fans are nice.
Well, no, but look what he could do with that monster, though. I mean, it's a shorter porch, and the way he hits the ball, I mean, God, he could lead the American League in home runs and doubles, I would think, playing in that ballpark. Anyways, difficult, but let's remember, that was a soft deadline, right? Like,
that was his deadline.
Nothing is preventing Edward Rogers and Blue Jays ownership from going, we absolutely cannot lose this guy. They were 9th in Major League Baseball attendance last year with a horseshit team. So you've still got a paying public there. Not to mention, and we say this every winter as well, the Blue Jays are not small market. In fact, as Scott Boras, the super agent, will tell you, the Blue Jays should have the economic means of any team out there. They've got a 40 million person market, all of Canada. They have national television distribution on all but a handful of their games.
And corporate head offices in their backyard, so that it doesn't make it... keep in mind, there is a tradition of Canadian teams losing Guerreros.
Indeed, there is, yes.
Because they're too cheap.
Well, but
understandable in the case of Montreal.
Yeah, I was going to say, those Montreal Expos are apples to eggs with these Toronto.
7,000 people in the stands, we can understand.
Exactly. Trying to scrape by those Expos where this Blue Jays organization has the means.
Vladdy has said, by the way, if there's a great number that's put in front of him by his agent, he will look at it.
Yeah, of course. NFL tag time, the franchise tags and other tags available to teams starting today through March 4th. As Adam Schefter notes, it's expected to be a quiet tag cycle with minimal tag options. The tags, particularly the franchise tag, has been used in the past to extend a player's stay in a certain market for a year or facilitate a trade. Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver T. Higgins is the big name here. Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold coming off that amazing regular season and horrific playoff game. And then Kansas City offensive lineman guard Trey Smith. They're the tag candidates. And, of course, if any of those guys are tagged and stay with their team, it would weaken the free agent class. And it's not a particularly great free agent class to begin with if your NFL team is out there shopping. And the T. Higgins one bears watching, too, because Joe Burrow got beat up last year. He had an MVP-like season on a Cincinnati team that just wasn't good enough to contend. Taking him out of that Bengals arsenal would be quite the blow. I think at that point you have the Bengals out on the receiver market, on the offensive line market. They're already on the defensive market. And then Darnold is quite interesting, too, because Minnesota has the decision to make. They drafted J.J. McCarthy, the Michigan quarterback, in the first round last year. He got hurt, missed the entire year. So are they buying what they see in Sam Darnold? Are they letting him go? Will there be a tag? Anyways, moving pieces about to start here in the NFL offseason. Surrey Mitsubishi poll question results from Monday, 1,000 votes. We asked you, what are your feelings about Canada going into the Thursday's Four Nations final? Confident or worried? The people said.
They said confidence.
Indeed. Percentage?
64.
63. Pretty good. Chris, confident. Except for our goaltending. Binnington is awful, shouldn't be on the team, and it's good for at least one bad goal against per game. We're going to have to ventilate Hellebuck if we're going to win, but we have the horses to do it. Jim, in the final, Canada will prevail because we will control our emotions and play a focused game. These games bring out the best in Canada. Here, Jim.
I hope so.
Errors and omissions from Monday's program. Canucks prospect forward Ty Mueller was a 4th-round pick, not a 5th or 6th. Last week, I referred to the last best on best as 2017. It was 2016. Although I'm almost half inclined to quibble with that being a best on best, right? Like when you have Team Europe, when you have Team Young Guns, whatever.
Look at that Team North America now, though. That's a pretty freaking good team.
Sure. And Blake erred when he said last time you can cheer Connor McDavid for a number of years. They go to the Olympics next year. You can cheer
just 1
Connor.
year. Yeah.
I had somebody at Greta mention that to me on Saturday. I've been waiting all my hockey watching life to cheer
to claim
Connor
him,
McDavid
to claim him as one of our own. Yes,
exactly.
That is the beauty of this thing, and we had it for 15, 20 years.
Yeah. Well, the opener at the Bell Center, they cheered Brad Marchand and Mitch Marner. A Leaf and a Bruin.
Yeah,
being cheered in Montreal. Nothing further?
No.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, Live, many of those platforms. Noon Pacific time. Again, we will not have a show the next couple of days. We'll be back on Friday after the big final. And, of course, support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.